Hello and welcome everyone to the final day of Phase 1 for the SMITE Pro League. My name is Gormizer. Joining me right over there is going to be Mifflin. Mifflin, we managed to come into the last day of the SPL for this phase with two matches that are still incredibly important and still have a lot of weight for them. One, and it's this first one that is going to determine whether or not Renegades get to go to the playoffs.
I mean, that's best case scenario for all the Smite fans, right? Get that backloaded content. I'm excited to see this match, and it would have been hard for any other scenario to get me excited about a bottom-seeded game in the last week of the SPL, but somehow it's going to happen, and both teams are playing with substitutions today.
And you can see those standings. Yeah, I think that's the interesting point. Both teams playing with substitutions. But as of right now, Sanguine, they get their win. They can potentially take over that first place spot with SSG. Either way, they're looking to try and stay in that top two. But realistically, we're going to be watching the bottom two first. Obey going up against Renegades. And Obey specifically, as we zone in on them, a very big turnaround for them when they picked up Sino. Unfortunately today, they're going to be playing without Wowie. So, that's the conversation I think that we have to approach this one with, is the fact that you are down a carry when it comes down to it, and maybe one of your most consistent members that we've gotten to see. How do you think not having Wowie in the equation is going to affect them?
It's almost always going to affect your just morale going to the game, playing with someone that you're not used to playing with, especially in a set that is as important as this one. Maybe not so much as important to Obey in particular, but still a very important game in general. It's got to weigh on their minds. They have to know that already that the duo lane for Obey has been having some consistency issues, especially around whether or not they're able to just hold their own, and doing so now with just a new guy in the roster, that's going to be rough.
It's actually one of those, interesting dynamics, like you said. Unless Obey really want to play spoiler, they don't really have a lot to lose if they don't pass throughout this one with a win. And they don't really have anything to win if they gain it other than maybe Renegades tiers in a cup. And so that's something that has to kind of be brought up because it is that fire that maybe is going to fuel Renegades for this one. But for Obey, already having to deal with, technically a new jungler this phase. At this point, I guess we can say that they're comfortable with Sino, but specifically losing your carry, like is Sino or Wolfie, are those two enough to maybe alleviate the pressure from that third backline kind of being void here?
I would say that the core three of all of Obey's wins really comes born from gonna be Sinosure, it's gonna be Wolfie, it's gonna be Ducky. That's where they see the most of their success come through. So losing out on their duo lane a little bit, yes, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt their odds. That lane's gonna be significantly weaker regardless. But I think that might have been the best case scenario if Obey has to lose a player.
Well, we can speculate all we want going into this, but instead of doing that, let's instead just talk to Inbound and see what exactly they're feeling as they go into this set, since it's going to be a big one for Renegades.
All right, I got Inbound here with me, support for Obey, and an Obey squad that's actually been looking a lot better here lately. I got to start off with, obviously, though, there are a lot of teams affected by the recent competitive ruling, and you all were no exception here. What's the plan going forward? Who do you all have stepping in for Wowie, since he's not going to be playing with you, and how have you all, kind of adjusted to that last-minute kind of barrier that's in your way?
Yeah, we're playing with Kassir now. And it definitely sucked having to, having to deal with it, but it's the end of the split for us, and we can't make playoffs anymore, so it's not, the biggest thing for us having to deal with it, right now, so we'll just play with Kassir, and we'll get the game out of the way, set out of the way.
Okay, well, talk to me a little bit about what this season has kind of meant for you all anyway, because it's been very up and down for you guys. You had some struggles, but I think that you personally have looked a lot better as the season has gone on, along with the whole squad. Wolfie's looked a lot better here lately to me, too. What are some of the adjustments you guys have been making, and how have you all been gelling towards the end of the season?
Everything's just, starting to come together. To the beginning of the year, we just didn't have, much synergy. We all kind of were just playing Smite, I don't know, it just didn't seem, it didn't feel good to play together. And now, towards the end of the year, everything's, starting to mesh and come together, and, we all kind of, know what the other ones want to do and how the other ones want to play, and I don't know, it just finally, feels good to play Smite, and it feels like we're actually, on a team.
Okay, good. Well, glad that you all have finally gotten to that point. Well, you all are going to be playing up against Renegades, and they have looked I don't know. They've been really up and down lately, kind of not unlike yourselves. What have you seen as kind of their consistent strength lately? What are you all focusing on heading into the match?
They just play like heavy duo, like prio, like it's like dual lane carry for them. And it's not like just Bear, it's not like AD carry for them. It's just dual lane because Jake will carry games for them too. So
Sure.
as long as we just like, I don't know, don't let them get massive dual lane leads and just like kind of stem the bleeding of like the early game that they have because they have a really good early game too. I think we can like team fight with them.
All right, well, the last thing is, I know that Phase 1 wasn't quite what you all expected, but things are a bit more weighted towards Phase 2, I feel like. So does that give you all maybe a bit of motivation that you still have plenty of time to turn this around with Phase 2 coming up here for you guys?
Yeah, I definitely think we'll be able to like turn the season around heading into Phase 2, and like we want to win today. Like it might not matter like a ton, but like we want to get like all the points we can. So like we're absolutely going to try our best still, even if it's with Kassir. And yeah, I'm just excited to head into Phase 2 and I don't know, finally be able to play like the beginning of the split with like Sino and just see how everything feels then.
All right, man. I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me. I know it's kind of a tough situation we're in, but glad to hear the team's mentality is still positive, man. Good luck in your match, and thanks again for making some time.
Thank you, Finch.
Well, I'm excited to hear that the team still wants this win, whether they're playing with Kassir or not. They are still pretty hungry for it, and they recognize where a lot of the carry potential comes down from Renegades. And as surprising as it is to say, especially with the air about him coming into it early on, Mifflin, I like the respect being thrown towards Jake. I think that's something that Renegades have really earned themselves. That duo lane is deadly.
Jake has almost single-handedly earned that reputation. He was such a huge question mark coming to the year, playing all these unorthodox picks, just playing around with a meta that we haven't seen before. I mean, he was considered a ranked troll. 2019, 2018, awesome Jake 408. You get him on your team, you're like, oh, he's going to just go 0-17 in my ranked game. But he's earned his placement in the league. He's earned the respect that he's garnered over the course of this Phase 1. And I think it's only going to continue getting better. Jake's going to continue growing because this is his first real chance playing at this top level with a squad.
And this guy on your screen right now, Venenu, just an interesting tidbit going into this one. 14 more kills if he's able to find them today. Will be able to make him tick up to 100 kills for Phase 1 for this year of the season so far, Season 7. But the biggest thing will be, well, someone who we haven't gotten to see, but you can see that Jormungandr there on the right side of your screen, who won't be in today. Solar Troll also going to be out of there. And I mean, that's something important. When you're looking at it, you've got a dual lane member missing for Obey, but your solo lane missing for Renegades. Which one of those carries a little bit more weight?
I think that SOT has been a lot more impactful in Renegades' wins than WoWy has for Obey's wins. And that's not to say that SOT is just a better overall player. That's not to say that WoWy is either. I just think that in regard to playstyle, Renegades in particular plays a lot around their solo lane, more so than Obey plays around their duo.
Yeah. I was excited because there were a couple members from Renegades that were looking to hit some milestones. Unfortunately for Solo Troll, again, he's not going to be here today, so he's not going to be able to hit any for him. And unfortunately for the team, they're going to have to work around it. That being said, they do have someone, I think, familiar with the solo lane going through, but we can actually talk to their mid laner, Venenu, to see how the team is feeling going into this big set up against Obey.
All right, I am here with Venenu, mid laner for the Renegades, obviously, and you all were one of the teams affected by the comparative ruling, so I assume you guys are going to have Ro stepping in for you. What role is he going to be stepping into, and what's the prep been like for you guys kind of behind the scenes here?
He's going back to the solo lane. You know, last year he was on PK. He was stomping some people, and now he's back with us now in solo lane, covering for this Obey set, so... Yeah, we've been, prepping as much as we can. Not really have much prep time, to be honest with you.
Sure.
But he's been, spamming a lot of ranks, so hopefully that helps and stuff like that. But we're here to help him if he needs it.
Well, it is kind of a tough time. You guys absolutely need this win, and then you have to hope that E United loses, I believe, because you guys got the tiebreaker going in your favor. What's the plan to make sure that you guys are able to take down Obey here and qualify? Is there any opening that you've noticed from watching some of their last few games?
We're just going to play our game and the way we've been playing. I think we played really good versus Radiance. So the mistakes that we made versus them, we're just going to, try to fix them up and beat Obey with it. I think the mistakes we made, we wouldn't make again. but at the same time, we keep making mistakes over and over. So with Rowe, it might be a little different because he's a different play style. Not too sure, but hopefully it goes well.
Well, I'm glad that you kind of brought it up because it feels like you guys keep getting right there close to finding ways to win these games or turn the sets around. You're really right at the doorstep, and then you have a hard time converting, which is harder, I think, than people give it credit for. It's so competitive right now. What have you all kind of noticed has been the thing that's maybe holding you back in some of those moments?
I think it's just overall like having the correct shot caller making the correct shot call.
Sure.
It's also like sometimes we don't get to practice our late game, or like we don't take it. It's our own deficit, to be honest with you. Like we don't.
Sure.
Sometimes in scrims, like we'll like be really far ahead, and then we'll get to late game, and then we'll just like mess around and stuff like that and have some fun. But like as of recent, like even before the Radiant set, we were taking it like really seriously, and I think it showed that we played our late game better, but we still like made a few mistakes here and there that I don't think we'll make again. But yeah, I think if we clean up our late game, we'll be in a really good spot.
I agree, man. It's been great watching you all just get better. I feel like you've improved as the season has gone on, too, so it really has been fun to watch, man. I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me, though. Good luck in this really important match coming up.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
It's an important one, as Finch says at the very end there, because it's win and in for the Renegades. Win, and they are going to the playoffs, and lose not even one. If they lose, period, if they lose the set, things are going to be rough for them. So a 2-1 victory is still something big to write home about here in Mifflin, and well, what better way for them to start it off than in Game 1 picks and bans for them coming forward. I think Obey... There's a lot of weight to potentially play upset here, but it really is the pressure on the Renegades to win this one and upset United.
Yeah, I think so. Renegades definitely are looking for this dub. They've got the heat. They've got the scenario. I mean, they had to pray for United to lose, and they get that as a godsend, and now they have to prove it themselves that they've earned that spot. If I'm Renegades, I'm looking to run it down duo, right? That's where you want to go. You know you've got this veteranship in Barracuda. Awesome Jake's been having a fantastic year, and no shame in exploiting a weakness. If Obey's down a man in their duo lane, I'm not showing any mercy. I'm going to run it down as hard as I can. Similarly for Obey, I think their idea should be, we're looking at Jingwei, we're looking at Hachiman, we're looking at Geb, something safe in the early game, maybe even a Fafnir, and just make sure that duo lane isn't going to cost them the game.
It seems like Renegades are trying to prepare themselves for a duo lane that can be elevated just a little bit with the Kepri ban that comes out there. But it's the Aphrodite, it's the Camazotz, both of which maybe not too surprising. Camazotz, I think, the most banned god in the league so far of Season 7. So not surprising to see him taken off the board. Sobek taken away, though. Typically a solo lane pick. Do you think that that's something that would even be big, even for Ro?
I think so, and banning out Sobek might be Obey trying to exploit that similar weakness. The solo laner's gone. Let's take away that safe, sustained pick, that ungankable lord that is the god of the Nile River. Sobek, he's going to be so safe in that lane, he's going to rotate out and do just about anything that you want around level 20. Let's not let Ro do that. Let's put him on a warrior. Let's make him uncomfortable, force him to fight.
I was thinking, based on memes we've seen from the Renegades in the last day or so, even Ro saying, like, some people asking, what are they going to do having to, replace Soul or Troll? He made a video of himself just locking in the Jormungandr. Unfortunately, not going to be able to play that one this time around, so I think Obey maybe doing their homework a little bit, forcing him to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be the Raijin first pick here for more than likely Venenu there. That feels like a good start for Renegades.
It does. I mean, Ven on Raijin, is there a better match? I can't think of one. The pressure he's going to be able to bring, the raw damage output in the late game is going to be so hard to deal with as a new hunter for Obey. Kassir probably doesn't have that much matchup knowledge insofar as the lane, which is why I'm excited to see this lane coming out of Obey. Fafnir, very safe. It's one of Bobby's go-tos. Jingwei, potentially the safest ADC in the game, barring maybe Heimdall. He shouldn't be able to get exploited in the early game. Obey also ban out Guardians, so now Renegades are likely going to have to look towards a warrior, giving Ducky a lane that he's going to be able to fight in. Playing the P's and B's right now, both squads are going for each other's throats.
I actually really like this because Obey, like you said, maybe finding some things that they're very comfortable with, but realistically, for Renegades, Raijin, Pele, potentially the Heimdall here, it just kind of feels like they were like, all right, where are our win conditions? Right now, let's not even worry about solo lane. Let's just grab what we know is going to work. Let's get mid comfortable, let's get Bara comfortable, and let's get Lasbra comfortable. And then as long as those 3 pillars are set, the game can fall into place for them.
And those 3 pillars, they'll work against just about anyone. If all 3 of those members on the side of Renegades get something that they're going to be completely comfortable on, they should be able to win matches against SSG, Sanguine, let alone an Obey roster who's hamstrung by missing out on a member. Pele is going to be able to dive that backline very effectively. She's very hard to deal with as a squishy. When you have a sub playing a squishy on the enemy team, let's exploit that. Heimdall is going to be able to fight into just about any pick on the map. Barracuda's looking for blood in the early game. Raijin's going to be this late game win condition that's going to have all this pressure on the map from Pele and Heimdall to farm up freely. Renegade's draft is pretty strong right now.
Yeah, it's very difficult to shut down the duo lane the way that Inbound said they wanted to in the interview if Bara's playing one of the safest hunters that there is in terms of disengage and control. So maybe needing a little more lockdown over there. Fafnir Jingwei need some help from the jungle, but it's the Horus, the Cerberus ban that is going to be coming down from Obey. Naja looking for one more. Probably anything that scares Venenu or Bara at this point going to get taken off of the board. And again, trying to shut down Sino. And that Nike fits right into that column of things I'd be scared to let Sino play and free fire with.
I mean, he's been having a great year on that god. He's been able to engage every single fight for his team. He's been playing around the backline as an assassin as well. He's been leveraging that ultimate to be the engagement factor for his squad, get that secondary health bar online. Sino, I think, has played an assassin only once in the SPL so far this year. Locking in Thanatos, I'm excited to see what he can do. It's going to bring global pressure, should alleviate some of the issues that they're going to have with their dual lane, knowing that Thanatos can just hover on over. I'm really stoked to see what he's able to do on an assassin.
It is a really weird world where Tier gets locked in, and I'm waiting to see the solo lane pick for Renegades, because that still feels like Awesome Jake in my mind. Maybe that is going over there to compete with whatever Obey will have. He has CDs and sustain and can keep himself up. I think it depends on this next pick for him. It's going to be the Vonana, which I will be 100% with you, Mifflin. Doesn't really tell me too much based on what I know about Renegades, but still, Tier has been one of those picks for specifically Jake, and I think Tier Heimdall, that's a scary matchup to have to deal with over there.
I was hoping that it was going to be an easier warrior picked up alongside of it, but both of them having knockups means that neither one's really going to have a great matchup into this Jingwei. Tier a little bit more so that Fearless, you're going to have to wait a little bit before you dash out. You should be able to get that damage online. So I think you might be right calling out the 408 Tier support, and that's a huge kill lane. There's so much peel there. You thought it was going to be hard to kill Heimdall before. Wait till you get Fearless into a Cleave, into another Fearless, the slow from Lawbringer. He's got a lot to help out his mens.
Well, I know what I'm happy for, and that is the fact that I am seeing Bologna for the first time this season so far. Someone that I personally love to see, and I think does really well over here. How do you think she fares over there in the solo lane? Is she going to be able to bring enough to help Obey out in this game?
I think that Bologna is a god that is really going to be matchup dependent insofar as lane. Sure, she's going to be able to sustain up. She likely won't die to Vamana or Tier, whichever one Renegades decide to send over. But her transition to the late game is going to be so important for this Obey roster. Pele is very auto-attack reliant, as is Heimdall. That disarm could come in huge.
Well, let's see if the disarm is going to be able to take the Renegades down, or if they can put themselves on the path to playoffs. It's down to this one. Let's go down to the casters.
Well, the playoffs start today for the Renegades. It is Dolson and Hindu Man on the call for Renegades versus Obey. There was a small grouping, Graham, of Obey guys over here by the Fire Giant pit. So row under maybe a little bit of pressure, but won't face first blood just yet. But the pressure is on the Renegade squad here, Graham. They need to get a win to move on to next weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of putting it, is what you said, Dave, which is, yeah, Renegades playoffs start today because it's pretty much back-to-back wins to try and get the way to maybe a championship at playoffs. Who knows? But they've got to get through Obey first here today, and I'm excited to see how this one begins. And you just spoke a little bit about what Obey did in the early game there, grouped up on that right-hand side. I think they wanted a bit of vision of what was going on in the jungle and what the plan was going to be, because Ro did start with the Hand of the Gods and will be soloing in his own blue on that right-hand side. So they realize it's going to be trickier to get that pressure there. Because I think with the start that we've seen at Lasbra a little bit more of this year than anybody else, it's not a surprise to see teams trying to work out exactly where Lasbra will be starting.
Well, obviously there's some maybe nuance to this game specifically. Of course, Ro filling in for SOT, Kassir is going to be actually in the support role here, so it is Ducky versus Roe over there in the solo lane.
Yep.
Roe certainly not a Smite player to be scoffed at, but Ducky being the power solo laner he is, might be a place where Obey can push that advantage.
And I think that's the real talking point here, is how far ahead can Renegades duo lane get in Barracuda and Jake up against Kassir and Inbound? And in response, can Ducky get ahead of Roe and make something happen on the right-hand side of the map? You saw Inbound in the interview talking from Obey's point of view as well. They realize that duo lane is a danger point for them. They have to nullify it. They have to play safe. And I think realistically, that's no surprise in the composition they drafted there. Very safe, very backline orientated in that Jing way, and just a comfort pick more than anything else in this Fafnir.
Yeah, especially when you have Jake on the tier, and Gore brought up how aggressive this pick can be here in this long lane, especially with Barracuda on the Heimdall as well. Obviously, a lot of the conversation around the Heimdall, now that he's available, is big, massive late-game potential, but if Jake finds a big setup here early on, there's going to be plenty of damage follow-up from Barracuda, so First Blood absolutely still on the menu.
Yeah, but you're looking around level 3 where Jingle get a little bit more comfortable, because that agility she's got, that escape, basically will be nullified a little bit with what you've got in that laning phase from Renegades, right? You've got the Fearless, and it is a knock-up, which means Inbound can go, no, you know what, I'm going to disengage off the back of this Fearless. And the same can be said from the Horn from Barracuda. You can disengage off the back of it. I think one of the reasons we're actually seeing Bologna as well for Ducky here is because of the lack of initiation they have this game. And it's not often we've seen a Bologna. She's not been meta for a while. But one thing that Bologna will bring is this frontline Eagles rally that can initiate fights, that can start fights. And I think that's one thing that Obey with the dual lane they've had to draft here are going to suffer for, and why they've looked at Bologna.
Yeah, not only will, you know, obviously the Hunter role be kind of switched out there, Inbound is going to be the one who pivots over to the ADC role. I mean, losing, you know, Wowie is big. It's one of the power positions that Obey, I think, has really forged some, not necessarily wins, they've done it a couple of times so far this phase, but forced into game 3s has been largely centric around their carry. So I'm very intrigued, honestly, just on a personal level, to see how Inbound does on this Jing way.
Realistically, Dave, this is Renegades set to lose. Like, I do not predict Renegades lose this set. And if they do, full credit to Obey. I mean, they're playing for just the actual, like, standings to look a little bit better. They're still going to be at the bottom of the league. They don't go to playoffs. This is a null match for them, but they can influence things elsewhere. Now, I'm not trying to say that Obey are going to play this badly or, like, not care as much, because Inbound said it himself. They do care. The difference is, this is a huge change. Inbound, who's new to the league, struggled in the support zone all year anyway. Now being asked to step into that Hunter spot because Wowie not being available, it's a big ask. And I just don't think Obey are in that point to really make that happen. But Renegades can squander their chance here, and if they do, it's on them, not on Obey.
Yeah, especially when you're going against the likes of Jake and Barracuda. It's big, big shoes to step into. And right, for Renegades on the other side, it's just one plug-and-play sort of difference there, with Roe filling the solo lane, everyone else in their own respective roles. Of course, with Obey, you know, I mentioned how Wowie was absolutely big for them, continues to be big for them. In pushing some of these leads. Wolfie in this mid lane, not on the Raijin, one of his favorites, but playing around this Merlin. I mean, I think that's got to be one of the big positions that might give Obey a chance. Near follow-up there for First Blood, but Renegade's unable to find it just yet. Inbound taken quite low, so already some long lane pressure here, Graham.
Yeah, definitely. Level 5 for Barrow already. You saw him immediately look to use that ultimate. And going towards the mid lane, you can see the pressure now onto Lasbra. It looks like this could escape death there for Wolfie, but in the sky, here comes a gank.
Sino is here playing the assassin, won't find the execute. Barracuda's gotten the kill over in the long lane, so Renegades do end up swinging first. Action all across the map. Wolfie taken low, stays alive. Sino's going to move back, secure his red buff here. Jake in range, follow up from Venenu. Back Harpies, the target here for Sino, and be able to stay alive. Venenu plugs a little bit of extra farm, actually decent damage on Sino on the back end, but it's First Blood nonetheless, and it's Barracuda who's got it.
Yeah, we didn't catch it on camera, but I can audio describe what happened without even seeing it myself. Blinks down on Awesome Jake. He blinked in, hit the Fearless, and that's the death of Kissier, who was only level 4. He also had Shell available, didn't use it, which tells me he got immediately Fearless and couldn't get it off in time. The burst from Barracuda was just too much. If it's on the replay and it's right, my job is done.
Yeah, you could just disconnect from the call, I suppose, if everything else works there in your favor. All right, blink forward. There's the knock up and the final kill. All right, see you later, Graham. I'll talk to you later, I suppose.
Yeah, but best of enjoy the rest of the cast. You know, it really is like it kind of played itself for the most part there. With the pressure they've got already for Renegades, it's definitely paid off for them in this early game in the dual lane. And once again, this is just keeping them on the back foot. I do want to turn my attention to the mid, because you made a good point about Wolfie not being on this Raijin that we've seen so much of him on. Well, one of his second go-tos has been that Merlin, but I want to give credit to where Renegades chose this Raijin early on as well. Kind of take it away a little bit from Wolfie's comfort zone of this Raijin, but it's also just limiting where the aggression can come from a little bit. Merlin's a little bit more backlining, is the best way I want to explain this. You don't necessarily flicker in to deal damage too often on a Merlin, right? Like, you pick your windows very carefully. Raijin, on the other hand, can play very aggressive and up and in your face. It's just kind of nullifying that a little bit this time round. I still think Merlin's a perfect pickup this game, but again, I think it's one of the reasons why we see more of this Bellona. They've got a lot of backliners on Obey this game, and that's why you need something to be able to initiate outside of just hovering death over and over again.
There's one level lead for the left side of the map for the Renegades, mid lane included, and that's going to open things up for a red buff invade here. Inbound pokes out some good damage over on Jake. The full squad except for Ducky. Ducky was beginning to rotate over, all there to lock down that red buff for Obey, but it's going to be the purple buff that ends up falling for Jake nonetheless. I mean, this is clinical from the Renegades. You put yourself a small advantage. Let's start to try to peel away this left side of the map as much as possible. Lasbra hasn't gotten a kill yet, but you already saw what he was able to do to Wolfie over in the mid lane. So I like where the Renegades are playing. Cassier, maybe not as much, and Lasbra will add a kill for himself.
Yeah, good little pickup on this left-hand side. Cassier kind of caught in no man's land there. Nice little blink Fearless coming out from Jake, and that's exactly why you see him pick up this tier, causing so many problems for his opposition. I think that Fearless, calm down, Jake, all right? A little bit too exciting there, I feel like, although if you hit that, I would have been impressed. Yeah, this is just the battle of wills. I love what Obey did, though, Dave. They sent 4 members to that red buff and secured their red, but as soon as that was done, they kind of went, okay, cool, we did our job, we secured our own red, and then everyone went, but the purple buff, and so they still lose farm on that left-hand side. Renegade's still finding those windows. 2-level lead already for Barracuda. That's dangerous, especially when he's on this Heimdall.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where we figured Renegades would start to push this advantage, and they've done it maybe even more than we had expected, especially now that we're starting to get to the point where the supports are going to begin to rotate. Jake is going to leave the lane, try to make impact elsewhere. When you leave Inbound and Barracuda in the lane, things could get worse. Granted, we've already touched on how safe the Jingwei can be, so Inbound certainly will be able to avoid some solo kills there, but it's going to be difficult with Barracuda in the position he's in.
He'll survive, but it's how much of a lead Barracuda can then develop if it is left to a 1v1 over there, because that'll be a consistent purple buff invade. He'll be able to look towards the red buff, the alpha harpy, the back harpies even if he gets really frisky. It's not something we really see Barra do, to be honest. He doesn't go for enemy back harpies, but if the window's there, he could have that opportunity. And I think that's the question is like, how do Obey play against that now? Because the awkwardness is you've got Ro on the right-hand side, which is the weak link for Renegades today, but he's just going to play with Vamana, and that's pretty damn safe, if I'm honest. It's not an easy thing to kill. Get him low and he'll pop his ultimate, so the window of execution is what you're looking for there. I just don't know if they're going to find that, because I think Ro will just hold his own in that laning phase.
Well, it's purple buff off of cooldown, and it's Obey are going to send 4 over to lock it down. Sino is going to free farm that one away. So Renegade's not trying to get overly aggressive here, sensing Ducky is somewhere missing. You kind of mentioned how Ro is the weak link here for the Renegades, coach filling in that solo lane. He's been even with Ducky here up to this point. Obviously very safe on the Vamana, but I think that's what you ask for, right? I mean, you got a guy coming in, he's filling in for you. Just don't get, I mean, maybe even a little bit behind is forgivable, but the fact that he's been able to stay even with Ducky, I think it's got to be a win for the Renegades.
And it's credit to Rowe stayed up with the game too, because honestly, he played at the World Championships just recently. Wasn't his first Worlds, by the way. He's a former Australian pro player and has been to a few World Championships before. So one of the reasons why he's highly valued as a coach, his knowledge of the game and his team camaraderie is the sort of coaching style I feel from Rowe, right? Like, no one really knows everything a singular coach does because they're all varied. But I think Rowe brings a lot in terms of keeping people on an even keel.
Whoa, he wants to go in too and start off this fight. It's going to force Sino into the ultimate, and he is able to get away. So a shift in the mentality here. Renegades are going to push themselves over to the blue buff side of the map. Jake looking for the blue buff, not off of cooldown yet. Sino still in range. I'm not sure they've spotted out Jake
we got it.
yet. Wolfie moving through. Rowe here to play as well. Lasbra has found himself in the backline, but a big silence from Sino is going to keep Lasbra in place. That's an airstrike from inbound to re-engage on the fight as Wolfie has found one onto the Renegades jungler. A 1-for-1 trade. The Renegades build on that lead just a touch.
Favors Obey for me, though, Dave. I mean, this is Renegades trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck deep in the jungle. Jake setting up a bait tactic there where he ends up losing Lasbra because of it and then dips out of the fight because he's forced to. The rest of his team pile on in. I think that was just too much over-aggression for me from Renegades on the right-hand side, if anything. And so, like, Sido does fall there, sure, but it shuts down Lasbra's farm and gets a little bit more farm online potentially for some of the Obey guys. I'm a big believer in that Renegades being a drop ball there for me. Although, when you look at the left-hand side, it is giving that little bit more space for Barracuda again. And we've spoken about that as he's looking for the more pressure on this left.
He was looking towards that purple buff, but Cassier was there to move him away. Now Gold Fury is the target here, inbound, 1 level down now on this Jingwei. Almost fully stacked Transcendence for Barracuda. Just the sword from the sky was enough to make inbound think twice about moving out of tower range there. So it's Fury locked down. Rowe, he said he was able to stay even with Ducky. Unfortunately, the 2v1 will tilt things back towards Obey. So, grand scheme of things, it's a Gold Fury lockdown for the Renegades. Pulls that lead right around 3k, but you lose your solo laner in the process.
Yeah, and I think Coach Rowe will reflect on his own play there and go, I'm an idiot. I don't know why I needed to do that at that stage of the game, you know, like, it's still a win for Renegades overall, but Rowe himself will be frustrated that he let himself die there. Just too far up in the lane, you know? He knows his team's, coming elsewhere on the map. He's not going to get support. A little bit overconfident, not respecting. Maybe he expected Sino to be on the left-hand side with the Gold Fury being down. Inbound, though.
That's a blank forward underneath the tier 2 tower, but the dash from inbound is safe enough. Venenu takes to the Taiko drums. There is the airstrike to get out. Maybe awesome Jake licking his chops now. Inbound doesn't have as much disengage as he did a moment ago. The knockup hits around the tier 2 tower. Jake takes his lunch money. After he trades out his life and didn't even get a shot, was inbound, so he gets the free death. Back to base to spend some of that newfound money. Pyromancer, though, locked down for Obey.
Real no need there, honestly, from Awesome Jake. Totally used to call it a technical TKO, and that's what he'd already done to Inbound, but the punishment was just killing him. Lasbra, though, is way too far forward. Great save from Rowe.
Half HP on Lasbra. Rowe in range. Wolfie has rotated. Second kill of the game now on this Merlin. Rowe not fearing really anything here in the backline. Is just going to Colossal Fury down some HP, but there's 4 members of Obey looking at him once that time's out. Big knock up there to escape. Thorns nearly got the kill over onto Wolfie, but they pin him into the corner, and that's the 4th kill of the game for Obey. Rowe continuing to play aggressive, unable to lock down the kill, though, this time around.
I think that time Rowe was forced into that situation to support his team, or were in too deep.
Yeah.
But that's a situation as a support or as a tank you end up getting involved in because your carries get themselves a little bit too far forward. For me, I think that was more Lasbra making a mistake of being too deep. Rowe's forced to get in to help him out, and in the end, they both end up tumbling down. So this is giving Obey more windows to get back into this game and find leads elsewhere on the map. Look at the lead starting to develop in that solo and jungle position now, Dave. You're seeing a lead for Obey.
Right.
Cassier, though, under pressure.
That's going to get one back for Venenu here in the mid lane. I'm trying to think back, Hindu Man. Is this the first time we've seen Sino play an assassin in the jungle since he's joined Obey? I mean, it has been Osiris, Wukong, Nike, kind of across the board. There's maybe one example that I'm missing.
Yeah, there'll be a sprinkle of assassins somewhere when I'm checking my stats. Yeah,
Right.
and I think that's based off the state of the game too, right? Because if you think about how Obey have been playing as of late, Sino's been a little bit bruisery, a little bit tankier, because he's been a facilitator of these fights, going in early. Now, with this game, without having a carry available in Wowie, and with Inbound not being on his usual position of support, he's got a lot more pressure on him to be an annihilator, to be a killer and a murderer like this.
But he can't get rid of Jake. Inbound is going to airstrike and won't be able to finish off the damage there. Barracuda being burned away by the Fafnir. Cassier had already transformed. Wolfie rotated through as well if the fight really developed any further than it had already done. So continued pressure here in the long lane. Tier 2 tower being looked at. Lasbra, Venenu, Barracuda, and Jake. I mean, that 4-stack will absolutely melt any medium to low health target that Obey are going to throw in that direction. Wolfie on this Merlin, though, it's something we touched on that he's not on the Raijin. That might be the big hinge point here for Obey. We've seen what Wolfie can do when he gets a few kills into his back pocket. Already Divine Ruin, Spear of Deso, moving into that pen build. This Merlin is going to start hitting some serious power spikes here.
Agreed, but look at Renegade's squad here, Dave. I mean, you've got Vermana, Pele, and Tyr that are going to run you down constantly.
Yeah.
The pressure onto a Merlin this game, he can get the damage out, sure, but can he survive and stay well positioned? Because as soon as that flickers on cooldown, if Renegades have got engaged potential on him, Rowan, Lasbra, and Jake, and closing down that gap, that's their duty. And I think that's the biggest key when you look at Obey's squad is no one's really going to backline peel that well. It's very much a W key game. We're all going in over and over again on both sides, I want to say. So it's up to the backline to self-peel. And I think that's one thing where Wolfie may struggle this game as it goes on, of trying to find those windows to get the damage output out.
Yeah, going to be absolutely... They're very, very difficult there for him to keep himself safe in some of these fights. The rifts have started to kind of build, though, here in the solo lane. Row was even enough for a while. It seemed like once Ducky had any sort of lead built, Row was kind of pushed back against the wall. Granted, he's been, caught between a few members of Obey a handful of times, but seeing that many members of Obey on the right side of the map will give Renegades a free Oni Fury here. And as far as pushing down map pressure, especially in a solo lane that could use some help here at the moment, that's a great pickup for the Renegades.
Love the idea from Obey to try and pressure right, though, at the same time. But I also like Row's decision-making. Didn't just run away and back and disappear in the jungle. He hung around on purpose to keep vision. Gank on the left-hand side.
And Lasbra has Inbound taken down, and after an Aegis will likely get the kill here. So Lasbra now with his third of the game out of the jungle here for the Renegades. This Pele absolutely swinging, and that's going to open up a 2-level differential for the time being over in the long lane.
Yeah, Inbound should have just ulted them. That's basically all it was. He tried to make a play, he used his Aegis, he got aggressive with his Gust. He was trying to take a trade against a Pele at this stage of the game. Equal level. Pele's going to take your head off for the most part.
Yes.
If you see a Pele ultimate, just get out. Just wait for that ult to wear off. You can't be trying to take trades against her in a 1v1, even as Jingwei at this stage. Really, Inbound went for the Relic. I would have gone for the ultimate, played it safe. Now again on the right.
Here comes Steino down. He lands good knockback from Barracuda, and Barracuda is out. Row popped the Thorns and the Colossal Fury. So he's going to keep going for the time being. Watch out, a couple members from the Renegades rotating over. That's Lasbra and Venenu. Steino beneath the tier 1 tower. Evaporated. Row gets himself on the board here. Ducky is going to try to turn around as much damage as he can. His Wolfie has come to play as well. And now it's a killing spree for the Obey middle laner. But Venenu gets the damage he needs. Down goes Ducky, and it's a 2-for-1 in favor of the Renegades. Could get worse as Jake is here.
Ooh. But the nice little sidestep on Wolfie will keep him alive. Great play from Wolfie, by the way. We were just talking about how much damage you could get out. And you heard me say about Rogue there. I was like, he's just in that tower line too long for me in that big baby form. Like, sure, you're trying to keep him pinned. You're trying to wait for the rotation to come in. But you're just eating all these tower shots for no real reason, I felt like. He could have hung around there still and not eat as much. But it worked out okay for Renegades. But I do like Obey's response. They've not given up just yet. But Cassier's in trouble in mid, forced to ult defensively.
Yeah, it's a 4-level differential now in that support role. Maybe what we expected given, obviously the role changes here for Obey coming into this game. Jake on a pick like the tier. It really kind of seemed like writing on the wall coming into it. And if the openings were going to be there for this tier to make a difference, Jake would find them.
Yeah, I disagree with the tier pick overall. I think if the situation and the state of the game was different, Dave, I'd be complaining about a tier pick up here because I don't think it works very well against this composition, the reason they've gone for it. But under the circumstances of what's going on here, it's not caused a problem. Jake has actually played it pretty well so far. Got himself a pretty decent lead over Cassier as well, as you said, 4 levels. Do want to touch as well, while that gank was on solo lane, we did see that Pyro also go down for Renegades there. Barracuda had rotated all the way over to pick that up. And that's just like Renegades still finding windows for experience and gold as they continue to keep Obey pressured everywhere on the map.
Right, it's so easy in games like this where Obey really don't have much of an option except to kind of sit beneath towers and try to farm up the best they can for the games to stall themselves out. So smart from Renegades to pick up golden XP where they are able to. Fury's still 1 minute and 45 seconds away. Hindu, though, I mean, it's an early fire giant, but maybe given some of those statements, it's the point in the game where the Renegades could feel comfortable. They've got about a 5k gold lead over Obey, level leads in 1 or 2 of their roles, solo, jungle, mid, all even. Maybe it's an early FG to really give Renegades the push.
It's not a bad idea to look towards the FG, but I also think the ward coverage on that right-hand side of the map tells you that both teams kind of recognize that could be a thing. Sentry wards down for Obey, right, in certain areas around the FG, just to make sure Renegades can't do it. But look at Renegades wards, right where Thanatos is now, just giving vision of the area into the pit. The idea is there, but I think it'll be based off a pick more than anything else. A good pick onto maybe the Merlin, maybe onto Ducky on this Bellona. That window could open up. But I don't think it would just be a forced case of let's just go for it now, because I still think Obey have the damage output and the fight potential to contest and cause problems.
Yeah, it's still a 3-0-1 Merlin, don't forget, and inbound only gets better with time on this Jingwei, just completing that rage. It's always the question of kind of how do you deal with this Vimana once he's in your backline. Ducky looking like he's going to take up some of that mantle on his own. Has the Toxic Blade built up, Frostbound Hammer, a little attack speed to kind of cap off his build over there. So you talk about damage potential, a lot of that is going to be coming with Ducky, whether it's sticking on the front line, sticking on the back line. Maybe him and Ro are looking to do the same things in some of these team fights.
And the big key there, he said, is like stick to a target. So Venenu, so Barracuda, they're always prime targets. Stick to those guys, make them slow down, make them take more damage over time.
Right.
But it also is really good against Lasbra. That anti-heal in there, that Toxic Blade, really specific for Lasbra on this Pele pick. She's got so much sustain in the kit. If you can reduce some of that sustain or nullify it alongside like a Divine Ruin on a Raijin that we've got here, it does nullify. So you can look to try and do that. Merlin, sorry, is what I should have said. But yeah, Lasbra's gonna try and get in there and get the damage off, but if you can reduce the amount of lifesteal he's got, his survivability does dwindle more effectively. Not only that, Tyr and Vimana are also regen dependent.
Right, and Lasbra's got that winged blade, so not only we try to get out of the Frostbound Hammer a little bit, but some slows on Obey we mitigated there. Ro has been liberal with his use of the Colossal Furies here up to this point. Thorns popped as well. That opened up the door, though. Maybe no kill on the board. That's kind of a linear way of thinking, I suppose, when the third Fury of the game is now locked down by the Renegades. We've crested 7k in the gold department, 8.3k in the experience department. It's kind of this slow stranglehold that Renegades are putting Obey through. It's one thing if Obey can stall the game out, right? But in the meantime, the Renegades are continuing to pick up these objectives.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that Renegades need to be careful of here. They have control of this game, Dave. We've been talking like this is now their game to lose already at this stage for game 1. But if they keep just farming up and looking for picks at the moment and not trying to extrapolate their lead a little bit more for me, it's giving Obey a chance to hit these level 20s. That experience gap is closing because they can't get any more farm. Gold, it matters, sure, but experience? They're all going to hit level 20, and the items are going to catch them eventually. Sure, these Furies are great, but I think you're right, you mentioned a Fire Giant earlier, 25 minutes in now, and the state of the map. I think it's time Renegades start to try and force some fights around the FG.
Well, the winds of chains are blowing us over towards the Fire Giant, and it's Jake who has to use the ultimate to get out. Look at the damage Sino took, though, on the back end of that one. So they might hear us, and maybe both teams tend to agree as the full rotation over towards the FG is in effect. No deep ward coverage on the Renegade side of the Fire Giant pit, but it is there. On the Obey side, Renegades will knock down that Pyro. So another small gold spike here for them. Maybe the dance begins, a little poking and prodding on the front, but with Jake playing the way he is, maybe an engagement isn't all that far off. And Anu finds some good damage. Thunder crash forward to complete the kill. over onto Sino. Cassier has to leap over the wall. Rowe, Colossal Fury will force the airstrike defensively from inbound. Jake still on the chase. Cassier knocked on back, and it's Barracuda who finds the kill, and an immediate FG call starts it off.
Just look at Sino's beats real quick, everybody in chat. 45 seconds left on those. You know why? Just after that Fury, Dave, you saw a blink initiation from Jake that got Sino's beads. Renegades immediately go over towards the Fire Giant, set up a trap, and what happens? Jake looks again for Sino. He finds the Fearless on Sino, and the team burst him down. They found that window with one relic. That was all Jake, but that was well played from Renegades, and now the FG opens up. Obey have to stop this. They've got a couple of ults available, Bologna specifically.
They're going to try Hindu Man. Ducky in the front line gets knocked by the wayside by Barracuda. Jake has gotten a kill onto Wolfie, looking for one more now on inbound. It's a double kill for the support, and elsewhere the fight has gone miserably wrong for Obey. This is going to be the Fire Giant for the Renegades as well, and if the game wasn't blown open enough a few moments ago, 26 minutes in, it sure is now.
Yeah, good game from Renegades, honestly. And once again, that's full credit to Jake. I think what he did in that last little skirmish of getting the beads out of Sino and then following up again at the FG allowed that FG call for Renegades. Great play from them, honestly. But realistically, when you look at these two teams and you look at the issues they've both run into with having suspended players here today, I always knew that I favored Renegades with where the suspension had happened and what the state of the team was before the suspension came through, right? These are two engines to an extent that have both had a part replacement. Well, both these engines have been rickety, except I think the major part out of Obey has been taken out here. Expecting one of your parts to play a different role, inbound specifically, it was a big ask, and it's causing them so many more problems when it gets to the team fight stage now.
Yeah, right. Renegades could just kind of plug one cog in the place of SOT, where inbound has to move to a different part of the vehicle in order to get it to try to operate properly. So certainly a different look there. Now is the big gold swing time, if it hasn't been big enough just yet. 3 Tier 2 towers still available on the map. It's left side Phoenix that Jake is going to blink under. Cassier has to leap his way out. Wolfie was there to try to plug down some damage, unable to do so. Ducky awaiting in the wings. This is maybe a chance, Graham. This is where some of these games turn on the Phoenix line.
Yeah, a little bit forcing Renegades there. Get that tier 2, right? And they go, okay, let's just go for the Phoenix. And then they realize, hang on, this tower's up in mid. So Obey can funnel all their focus on defending the left-hand side Phoenix. No chance of that. So it forces Renegades to come mid lane. And I think Renegades could have just come here a little bit earlier than they did. I'm just wondering where they're going to get the next lead from now. I think they might go for a split 2-2 and not even bother with that right-hand side with how this is looking.
Barracuda does not have his beads here, does have an Aegis, so certainly can self-peel to an extent, but does need to be careful. Can't teleport when you're locked into the CC standing in those crystals, so depending on how Barracuda plays it, or how Obey maybe play it instead, could be a difference maker. You can see the defensive crystal drop there. It is a 3-2 split with Rowe and Lasbra pushing through into that mid lane, kind of a double flex from Obey, bouncing back and forth from the mid lane Phoenix. Jake has... well, he's been fearless as far as walking straight into the Obey composition. Rowe, Colossal Fury, and Thorns both in conjunction with one another. Ducky being taken down. Sino hovering death down, but it's death on his doorstep as Benenu will grab the kill and airstrike from inbound, but maybe death on either end there for him. Rowe has gotten the kill onto Wolfie. Inbound, the other carry maybe shortly to fall here. They've got some good damage over onto the Renegades, and Aegis, as you point out, saves their life. Barracuda on the killing spree. A deicide 29 minutes in, and the Renegades will swing first.
So it was so quick there, Dave, I didn't even get a chance to talk about what Obey's setup was on the Phoenix defense. Yeah, an inbound 2v3 on the left-hand side at the start of that engagement. That's where it kind of went wrong for me. There was no real way for them. 2v3 scenario, Cassier and inbound, I just want to say those names again. We're left in the left, where 3 members were in mid lane. And the initiations that you've got on the side of Obey on defense there is Sino's ultimate, Ducky's ultimate, or Cassier Hammer. Both of them came from mid lane, telegraphed easily. It was a good attempt at a defensive fight, but very well played by Renegades.
Yeah, and I think the Renegades have to be happy with the way they pushed that lead. Remember, there was some fight back from Obey, namely over in that short lane, the solo lane, a small lead there, but the Renegades really clean here, pushing themselves to the 29-minute win. We'll go back to the desk, though, to break down game number 1.
Well, right now they're one game away. Renegades trying to take on the final boss that is Obey on their path to the playoffs. And speaking of final boss, well, hey, there's a final boss battle pass that you can go get right now. Elder Jin, Baba Yaga, the Shadow, Guan Yu, Legion Hades, Frost, Gorgon, Medusa, 200 gems, and so much more inside there. So go ahead and go and get it. Do you have what it takes to complete each level and defeat the bosses? Go ahead and test your might in the final boss battle pass. As Renegades, again, test their might against the final boss that is Obey. And honestly, Mifflin, if Obey is a final boss in this set, so far, it kind of feels like Renegades are the guy that's been off doing all the side quests, farming as hard as they can. They're over-leveled as they're coming into this. That looked pretty convincing. A little shaky in the beginning, but after like the 15-minute mark, they had a good grip.
I would say even the shakiness that we saw Obey, yeah, they got a couple kills in trade, but they are always trading, and Renegades come out ahead every step of the way. I think the root cause of the issue there for Obey is Barracuda got ahead in lane. It created space for Jake to leave, and then what did Jake do? He went to solo, dived your tier 1 tower. He was diving your tower in mid. He was invading your back camps. That little bit of space was just exploited incredibly well. I mean, Renegades, you can say what you want about them. Yes, they ran it down duo against a objectively weaker duo because of substitutions, but that's just good strategy in my book.
I mean, hey, what works, works, and honestly right now, if you are the Renegades, you need a win, and that's what they were able to get at least there. One more and seals their deal to the playoffs. And the thing, I can't believe I had to write this. There's a frowny face on my notes for this one, guys, and it's because I love Bologna. And the only thing I think I might love more than base Bologna is Ducky's Bologna. But it hadn't maybe hit the same mark that we've seen in the past. And much like you said, Obey did a really good job fighting back. But a lot of it felt like it fell onto Wolfie, onto Sino to make those differences. Meanwhile, Lasbra, Jake, Barra, Venenu, all having stellar games, is just hard to shut them down.
Yeah, I completely agree. That Bologna didn't get very much impact in that game at all. That's probably why we haven't seen her in the SPL at all. She's so hard to get off the ground. She's so reliant on getting a lead and rotating to the team fights with that lead that locking her in, it's a double-edged sword. Her laning phase isn't even that particularly that strong. There are plenty of gods that are able to bully Bologna out. Ducky just decided to flex something new. Maybe he knew something that we didn't. It made sense in the draft. You want to deal with Lazarus autos, you want to deal with Barra's autos, but at no point was he allowed the opportunity to even try that.
Well, hey, worst case scenario there for Obey is the fact that we're getting closer and closer to, I believe, 90% God picks throughout the entire game who's been played over here in the league. So, hey, it shows that the versatility is still there. Maybe not always winning, but, at least being competitively viable in the sense that they're getting picked is big. Unfortunately, an 0-3 slash line that time around. So the conversation in game 1 before we went in was shut down duo lane. That didn't work out too well. It's what Inbound said they wanted to do, and unfortunately it just didn't quite hit the mark. Where do you put the focus on if you're Obey? Do you go back to the duo lane? Is it really all over there?
I don't think that you can reliably shut down Barracuda and Jake, especially considering Inbound was playing the Hunter role. I mean, I'm no expert, but that's not his normal role. He's not going to be performing at Barracuda's level in Hunter. Barracuda, 8 years of experience. Inbound, maybe a couple ranked games where he got off-rolled. I think, if anything, if I'm on Obey, shift Inbound back into support, have him rotate out like Jake did, and make sure that he can make his imprint known on the game. Because right now, even though he may be more comfortable on Hunter than Kasir is, he had zero impact in that game. Bobby, that is.
Well, we'll have to see if he's maybe able to either switch it up and get an impact this game, or if they're going to keep things the same, in which case he just needs to step it up as we go into picks and bans of game number 2. Again, guys, fire burning under Renegades now. One win puts them ahead of E United and puts them into the playoffs. If Obey are able to turn this one around, they still have to win 2 in a row, but it's still in the realm of possibility. And, well, I guess part of winning 2 in a row would have been to take care of Rowe over there in the solo lane. Did he have, I guess, maybe the best way I can word it is a non-negative impact on Renegades? I mean, it feels like you're swapping in someone new for both sides, but Rowe really isn't in the conversation anywhere.
Yeah, Rowe he wasn't the reason they won, and he certainly didn't lose them the game because Renegades do win, and I think largely that's due, in fact, to the pick. He picked Vamana. This is a god that has an escape ability. He's got CC immunity, the ultimate. He's got a heal. Rowe's playing to not lose, and when the core of Renegades, the other 4 members, are playing as they were last game, I think that's a perfectly viable strategy. If Ro's idea is, sit me in lane with Ducky, I am just not going to lose us the match, win elsewhere, that's strong. That's a good idea.
Well, hey, what works, and honestly, I feel like that's what a lot of people, especially in chat, would think of one of their ranked teammates, right? Just don't lose us the game, and that's perfectly fine. Somebody can step up to the plate to try and get the win as well. Some of the bans are coming through. Looks suspiciously similar to Game 1, and honestly, I think it's just because when you look at it, you need to limit where you can. Unfortunately, Ro has some gods that I think he will perform better on and make a positive impact for Renegades. It feels like Obey are trying to slow that down.
Yeah, the Jormungandr ban. Again, maybe, Kazir, next time don't tweet out what you want in a set. You might have got that Jormungandr, but now it's going to get banned out. But that's fine. There's so many safe picks that you can take in a solo that just have matchups where they shouldn't die. My man can lock in Chalk. Chalk has such a low impact in the game in general, but he's not going to die in that lane, and if that's all Renegades need, that's fine. That's why we see them constantly pushing this solo lane pick back. They're not worried about what Ro has to do, whereas Obey need to be worried about Kazir. Support's one of the most impactful roles in Smite. It's a rough one, man. It really is hard.
I think it's really fun that solo lane, there are quite a few picks it feels like that you can pick where it's like, hey man, you're not going to get anything done really, but you're not going to feed. And honestly, sometimes that's all you need when you go through it, especially if you're having a rough day. But Renegades so far starting off with their best foot forward. They get the Raijin back this time around, and they grab the Merlin Jingwei once again. And you had kind of called out that Jingwei as being likely for Obey. Didn't necessarily write home anything amazing last game, but is it all right to go back to it?
I think it's all right in that we see Kazir take the Hunter role this game. If it's still inbound there as a core member of this squad, if you're already relegating your lane towards, I'm not looking to win it, I'm looking to not die, Jingwei, the safest god in the game, you can't rely on just 3 members to win the game out for you. I mean, Ducky's strong, but he can only do so much out of solo. Sino can only do so much as one man. They need the support to be impactful. Bobby usually is that third man in the early game engagements, but Kazir, last game, he was a non-factor. If we see Bobby on this Jingwei, I would have much preferred him see something aggressive, something that might be able to snowball lane, might be able to fight in and find a lead in the duo, instead of playing something as passive, especially as passive as he played it in the last match.
Well, hey, Fafnir stripped away from Obey. Not usually a god that I think, hey, we need to prioritize this and take it away from someone, but, well, Renegades are going to be able to do exactly that. Kuzenbo on the other side, locked in. And now, so Mifflin, I feel really weird asking you this because Kuzenbo, the last few times I've seen it, specifically in like the EU meta this year, has gone over into that support role. It was mainly Trickstank in the Challenger circuit who was playing it a little more often, but we've seen Raffer pick it up a few times at the beginning of the season. I used to think he only fit over there in solo lane. Is this something that Obey are going to bring over into the duo with Jingwei?
I think that it could definitely work. Kuzenbo is a god that is looking to sit in your face and punish you for landing your abilities on him. He's one of the few gods that's going to do that to you. He pops his second ability, you're taking a little bit of damage back. I think that it could work out, especially considering they have a Raijin on the side of Renegades. If this Kuzenbo is allowed to rotate out of support role, go into mid, the second Taiko drums comes up, you're going to have a turtle with a spiked shell staring you down, at least returning a little bit. And he's got fantastic disruption factor, CC immunity ultimate. It's a very safe god to pick, but it's very execution focused as well.
Well, hey, Heimdall Hu Yi taking down Hu Yi, one of the top picks as a whole for Renegades, but the Heimdall was treating Bara well last game, so I think they're just trying to control that dual lane. It's the Naja and, well, the Nike once again for Renegades. I mean, they just come through, same 5 bans, recognizing where their weakness is going to be, take care of the King Arthur in solo, and then try to shut down Sino in the jungle, make sure things can stay smooth.
Gore, are you seeing? I'm seeing Vamana, Fafnir, and Cerberus locked in by Renegades. I guess we can only assume it's going to be Fafnir support, Cerberus solo, Vamana jungle. I mean, it's a run-it-down strat. You got a high-pressure god in solo. You've got a very safe support, and Vamana's going to be looking to just absolutely shut down Wolfie in the early game. We saw that last match. Wolfie was one of the shining rays of hope. Vamana goes into big baby form. There's not much a Flicker is going to do to get you away from him.
It kind of feels like Renegades are going to pretty much the same pillars they were last game, right? Hey, can we get Venenu to do really well? Can we get Bear to do really well? And somewhere in between, can Jake just have a good game and Lasber just have a decent game, right? They don't have to go stellar, they don't have to carry, but we don't want them to feed either. And so they've been able to keep it there. But the Mulan locked in on the other side with Osiris, with Kuzenbo. How are you feeling about what Obey are bringing into the picture?
I'm feeling some kind of way. I mean, they have win conditions, and their win condition is win in the first 10 minutes and hope that Wolfie does well if it does go any longer than that. Mulan's a very bully-heavy god, as is Osiris. I'm assuming it's going to be that Mulan in the jungle, but we might see otherwise. Either way, both of those gods in solo should be able to fight in relatively well to Cerberus, so you can rely on that lane to at least get some pressure. Outside of that, Obey's team comp doesn't have much cohesion.
Well, it's win and move on for the Renegades. Obey still looking to play upset. Let's see if they can do it here in game number 2.
Well, if Obey are hoping for a 10-minute game, well, this one might already be over, if that's what we're looking for here. Still Dolson and Hindu Man on the call. It will be another Vamana for the Renegades, but this time it'll be in the jungle for last. We're putting Row on the Cerberus there in the solo lane.
Yeah, a bit of flexibility to them. I'm kind of looking at Obey's comp, and I want to talk about what Myth was saying there, because I completely agree with what Myth is saying. It feels like Obey is playing this game not to lose, like more than anything else.
Right.
Like they're not. There's no. When I talk about cohesion, we talk about engage. What is the engage going to be, Dave? Like it's an Osiris ult, it's a Mulan pull into an ult after that. Like it's a very defensive composition that. On the backline side of things, with a Kuzenbo, they can peel pretty effectively, I would say, if Kuz is going to play backline. But it's going to be very hard to engage on this composition that Renegades have put together. Look at the the carries that Renegades have got. Raijin being able to disengage pretty effectively or use the ultimate to get some self-peel. And then you've also got Barracuda, who could just take himself out of the action in multiple ways with the dash into the wall, but not only that, gets to the sky and can even reinitiate. It definitely feels like Obey are just trying to get through the early game on an even keel and see how this goes on afterwards.
And I think it's a good thing that you bring up Barracuda, not only for the disengage potential of his ultimate, but the canyon that formed here in the long lane between the two hunters now can have global impact from Barracuda. Yeah. I mean, remember there was kind of this isolated solo lane pressure for a little while there from Obey, but all the while Barracuda's just kind of shoving down this long lane. Well, if the door is open, and there's lots of ifs in this scenario, but if Barracuda gets out to another lead, with that ultimate, the rotations are much easier for this Chernobog to make impacts on these fights earlier on in this game.
Yeah, not only that, it means he could play technically more aggressive on a Chernobog rather than the Heimdall. And I say that because Heimdall's escape will be the Biofrost, right? And he has to use that to disengage quite large distances, I would say, if he goes in too deep. Whereas Chernobog, he can overextend and use his ultimate to buy some time and see if he wants to swoop to another lane for escape or just hover in the air and wait for reinforcements. This allows Renegades to be even more aggressive towards the dual lane.
Well, not much sounds scarier to me than more aggressive in the dual lane, where you already have Jake and Barracuda, and Jake is going to get aggressive onto the purple buff. All of the damage, but the last shot was done there by Obey, but can't really deal with Jake in that moment, so the purple buff stripped away, and those are the small moments. It's not a kill, it's not first blood, but that's what's going to put Obey behind here again early on in this long lane.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, Obey started this game off with full Hand of the Gods in their inventory too, so they realized that first rotation of buffs, they didn't want to lose anything. If you saw how Lasbra's been starting, by the way, it's been consistently red buff into enemy, red buff invade, right? So Obey tried to nullify that with these Hand of the Gods to keep the first rotation of buffs good, but straight after that, like dropping the ball against Jake there, 2v1, unfortunate, but at the same time, Jake just played it out of this world. He's having a great day so far.
Oh, he is, and he'll look to do more of the same here. Has the horrific emblem picked up for his relic here. An interesting take on it's certainly one of the options I think supports have felt confident moving themselves into. But when you want to talk about chase and increasing your kill potential, certainly one way to do it.
But also look at the defensive aspects it's bringing too. I mean, this Horrific Emblem is going to make an impact against Sino as this game goes on. Very auto-attack focused is Osiris with threading the abilities in between, or vice versa if you want to see it that way. But his mobility is quite important to him. So shutting some of that down, shutting down some of that attack speed is going to be impactful. Same can be said against the Mulan. Like, every single thing of this Horrific Emblem is going to be very useful throughout the game.
Agreed.
Not only in kill pressure, but also defensively. And generally shells, you pick up shell to avoid big areas of burst. A lot of what Obey are bringing to the table here isn't necessarily burst in this early game, it's consistent damage output. So having the Horrific Emblem to just reduce the amount of consistent damage output can be more impactful than the shell.
Right, it's not unlike what the Renegades were trying to build on last game with their Vimana just kind of runching on the back. There's something like slightly humorous about it, where he's playing kind of this dwarf guy, just kind of waddling around, tosses the hammer, leaps over the wall, gets the purple buff. It's not only probably golden XP wise tilting for the Renegades. Mentally, it's got to be wildly frustrating. You do everything, and then he steals it away again.
And Obey's comms are like, we lost purple again, guys. So look at the right-hand side. Ducky said, oh, well, I guess we're going to do something to try and answer this back, so let's get aggressive in the enemy jungle. The bad news is they don't find anything. And as soon as they do get an opportunity to maybe look at that blue buff, look at where Renegades were. There was 4 members on this right-hand side going, hey, you need help over here? Let's not give him a free buff. Good play from Renegades again. Frustration for Obey.
Yeah, nothing short of it. 1 level differential as the supports have rotated out of the long lane really for the first time this game. And now you look at the difference really that Awesome Jake had in game number 1. Once the tier started to rotate out, it was consistent fighting, fearless not only in the ability but in his play style, just kind of sprinting at Obey time and time and time again. Fafnir certainly has similar opportunities here. He's going to disarm down onto Sino. Lasbra rotates in behind Wolfie. Bit of a split fight. As Sino locked down in the back, and Awesome Jake will find the first kill. Barracuda comes back down to earth. Sierra's going to throw out one last Nene Kappa, but first blood and likely Gold Fury over to the Renegades.
Short story long of that, Renegades like, hey, should we fight? Renegades went, yes, and then Obey lost the fight. It was pretty much that simple. Jake started off with a disarm looking towards Wolfie more than anybody else, and the engage was on Wolfie to take him out of the fray. Wolfie doesn't die, obviously, but what he does do is keep him so far back and out of the action, he can't put any damage into it. It opens the window for Venenu, for Chernobog to get in there and actually whittle down the health bar of that Osiris. And honestly, Jake's come a long way, like already. Oh, that was close.
He's looking for the kill on the Barracuda's inbound, but Airstrike won't finish things off. Barracuda's just going to stay safe. Off to the side, leap forward from Jake. Lasper's there. Red buff being done by Obey, and I think if any further chase was there, Obey would have collapsed in. So inbound gets away with it. Doesn't grab the kill, but has to burn the beats.
Yeah, I love the idea of inbound's aggression there, but I also think I'm more impressed with Renegade's discipline there more than anything else. A lot of people see a kill like that onto inbound knowing his beads are down, his ultimate's down. They're just going to keep running through the jungle. And Lasbra could have chased him down. It would have taken him a long time, but you're exactly right. Obey would have had a chance to find a win there. Good pull from Ducky.
Ducky pulls in Venenu. Lasbra is going to chip away some good damage there. Thunder Crash beneath the tier 2 tower. Oh, the sidestep on the last trigger of the ultimate there. Look at Rowe melting away the health from Obey. Lasbra's there to finish off the kill. Ducky back into the blue buff. Lasbra taking lows. Colossal Fury is going to wear off here, but Rowe plenty healthy enough. Jake is as well. Looking for maybe one final bit of damage. It's Venenu who gets it, but Sino is rotated into the fight as well, but the Taiko drums at the perfect time. Can Cassier get it? He sure can. A double kill for Venenu, though, and one lone kill over to Obey.
Let's go, Cassier. This is another time poor old Cassier has been forced to play Kuzumbo support as a coach. And he got a kill for his team. He got the first kill for his team. He's going to die here, though. Unfortunate tale, but at least he killed Venenu to make it okay. How's Inbound doing, though?
He's looking for the airstrike again. Barracuda's done so well on the quick fingers to lose out on, or force Inbound to lose out on a lot of that damage. Jake, no surprise at all, still deep in the Obey jungle. That's going to be a stun down from Ducky. Wolfie looking for a last bit of damage. We'll have his leap here shortly, and we'll be able to get away. The last bit of damage rolls through, and Rowe realizing that will just lock down the Totem of Ku for himself. So Bit of a back and forth last couple of minutes here, Hindu Man, but it is still a 2K gold lead at this point for the Renegades, 5-2 in that kills department. XP, though, big difference maker in game 1, still somewhat even here in game 2.
And I think that's the last couple of kills that we just saw come through for Obey, really paying off for them a little bit. Just giving them a bit more farm on the map. I mean, when you look at experience graphs, the immediate thing you can look at in levels is just where the level discrepancies are at a base, right? Does someone have a lead? But when you talk about the ins and outs of where all the experience goes to, it really is, if there's one member off the map and dead, they're not farming, so they're not getting any experience. So that does, like, equate the difference that you're seeing there a little bit. And as the game goes on, like, it's kind of easier to get some of this farm going for yourself and catch up in levels relatively quickly. I love Renegade's playstyle, though. They're not really playing through Barra at the moment, and Barra's doing what he needs to. He's letting Inbound get aggressive. He's letting Inbound go, yeah, I'll fight you. But Barra, instead of taking the fights, is going, no, you want to get aggressive? That's fine. I don't need to worry about that. My team's winning elsewhere. Why do I need to take maybe a 50-50 against you when I could just let you be aggressive and it's not going to bother me? You're still losing the game slowly. I've still got a lead.
Here we go again. Purple buff invade from Jake. Come down on Inbound, and
that's
who else
better.
gets it? But the Fafnir Inbound is going to be able to escape. Have to use the airstrike. But it's one more purple buff drop down. That's looking like tier 1 tower in the long lane as well.
And you can see what they're trying to do, Obey. Right-hand side, this pressure consistently towards Venenu, trying to rotate Ducky into these fights a little bit. They know Ro's not going to go too far ahead of himself and try and get in on the action or be aggressive. So they're looking to play around the fact that Ro's not being aggressive there. Look towards Venenu, but Venenu's all about his positioning, and he's getting reinforcements a lot of the time. I think it's the right look for Obey to try and find a win on, unless Ro does overextend too far, like this.
Ro has to use the ultimate there. Barracuda, he's joined the back of this fight. He wants to find a kill here, goes into safety, and is able to stay alive, and Venenu is pouring out damage. In the meantime, out comes the Chernobog, and up down goes Sino, and gets the kill. Over onto the Renegades Hunter, but Lasbra, he's pouring out damage with the help of his mid laner. It's a double so far for the jungler, and Venenu will add one as well. Sino blinks back through, no mana on the Raijin right now. That's the stun down, beads out, but rampaging is Lasbra. 503 for the baby in the jungle.
At first I was like, I don't know why Renegades chose to take that fight, right? Ro got caught, and everybody on Renegades rotates in and goes, save the Australian! I don't think you needed to. I think they could have pressured mid and taken a tier 1 tower there, right? Like, they could have got mid, because 4 members of Obey had rotated to just pick off a Cerberus. There was options elsewhere on the table, but they do come up trumps in the long run, and that's fine for them, but I don't think it was necessarily the best idea. It looks great for the viewers, though, you know? Unnecessary scraps in the solo lane?
Oh, yeah.
Why not? 11 minutes in.
Oh, we love it. And Lasbra loves it as well. Now 503 on the Vamana there in the jungle. Big gap now between him and Sino. And you talk about this warrior in the jungle meta wanting to dive onto an enemy team and find some lockdown. Lasbra's just going to be able to do it more consistently now. Has the Hydra, so not only will he be diving onto Obey, but Graham, he's going to be melting some health bars to top it off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's swinging this game, that's for sure. And that's the sign of playing with confidence when junglers go for even more aggressive builds. Look at the difference between the two warriors in the jungle. Sino gone for a crusher, just like Lasbra. But what's after that? Now he's going for defense. Whereas Lasbra doubling down. It shows the level of confidence to play with. Like this call from Obey, though, here, Dave. Try and take this Fury. Try and give themselves a window. But Venenu is here to slow them down.
Sierra moves in and didn't, I don't think, quite find what he was hoping for there. Primal Fury, half HP. Lasbra in the back line. Renegades take that one away as well. Obey cannot find a win anywhere on this map. Kissier will end up going down. Lasbra does not have Colossal Fury here, but he doesn't need it as Sino will take a tumble nonetheless. Dash away from Inbound. I think that's all we have as far as fireworks go, but it is a stolen Fury and a couple of kills.
I'll be real, I love the call from Obey, go for the Fury, but I think the decision at the Fury is where they fell apart. Kissier goes in, and for me that's zone work more than anything else. I think the rest of the team should have stuck to the Fury and may have been able to just take it while that's going on. Instead, Obey hesitate. They try and decide what they want to do next. Do we get aggressive and help Kissier and get kills, or do we finish off the Fury? And in doing so, they give a big enough window for Renegades to rotate in and take the Fury from away from them, but not only that, find kills in the process. So Obey just a little bit lost there, and that's why they get punished.
Obey are wondering A or B, and don't choose either. by the end
Exactly.
of it. Seems like if you're looking at objective damage, it's got to be a lot of it is Obey, but last hit percentage is all the way in Renegades' favor here this game. Pyromancer started up, but pulled back from the Renegades. A moment of hesitation from a team that's otherwise way in the lead. Might be the first big objective. Come on! Aspera goes back in, takes away the Pyromancer, as Obey thought they had a free objective in the jungle. Now it's Sino who's going to pop the ultimate and leap his way into the backline. Venenu, low on mana, has to use the beads and the Aegis. Could be a big kill back here for Obey, but the Thunder crashed just in time. Wolfie melted down, but a shell is going to keep him alive a little bit longer. Look at the damage Barracuda's doing as well. Jake leaps in, gets rid of the Merlin, and the scrap will continue with Sino and Lasbra on the back end. Maybe Lasbra getting the better of him this time around. It's really just a lot of Obey stuck in a corner.
Yeah, but luckily Sino will at least take down Lasbra. Now Ducky should fall down here to Barracuda and Venenu's combination. Dave, what happened there in that jungle? I love the idea from Sino. Get aggressive on Venenu, because Venenu was out of mana and had just used his Thunder Crash, so had no escape. Made sense. But they got blood in their eyes. They saw red and just kept running at Venenu. Lasbra ended up coming in and dissuading them from aggressing, and he got really low himself, but Obey just couldn't focus on a singular target. The team got split off a little bit, and it allowed Renegades to just rally round, collapse on in, and punish them for the overextension. If Obey commit to a target, the call's going to stay the same. I think people are getting distracted a little bit on the team, or just going too deep, chasing one singular target. End of the day, Venenu lived through that whole fight, and that's where that fight started, was initiating on Venenu.
He has to use both of his actives, though, so for the next 83 and then 102 seconds, maybe there's a small window to get in on that Rage. And of course, the Taiko drums, as damaging as they are, the CC immunity provides a free beads, maybe, in a way, if you want to look at it that way. Bit of a slower cooldown there with some damage on the back end of it. It's a totally different mindset, though. You look at the Renegades, and they didn't chase that one kill back by the red buff, and we were saying, well, maybe they could have chased it down, but smartly keep themselves from getting that red in the eyes. A bit different there from Obey is going to give the Renegades a further advantage here. 6k gold now in the lead. All Tier 1 towers have been taken down. We are 15, almost 16 minutes into this game, so it would be maybe the earliest FG I've seen, if that's where the Renegades go. Instead, it's just going to be straight to the Tier 2s, with Jake burning away onto inbound.
Yeah, interesting frenzy from Jake there, trying to force a situation down this left-hand side, but both teams now rotating it in. I think you'll see Renegades more than likely fall back. I think Obey, though, we're going to keep the chase going. Barracuda needs to be careful here.
Awesome. Jake is the one who's going to get locked down a little bit by Sino. Barracuda pops the ultimate here into the corner, but out of the corner goes Jake. Barracuda taking so much damage, but he goes into the wall. Look at Venenu melting health bars over on Obey. Barracuda, a good opportunity to finish off some kills, but it's Lasbra with the first, Barrow with the second. The Chernobog swing, and Ducky has gotten a kill on his end of this fight. Wolfie still just pushing down on that mid lane. It's going to be the 4 out of 5 for the Renegades here, and at least a Tier 1 tower in the mid.
Yeah, this is Obey of start of the season for me right now, and you can see why. You know, they've got the coach playing the support role and the support playing the hunter position. It fell apart the seams before the day even began, I felt like, for me, but the way Renegades have played this so far, I just want to talk about Venenu's playing that. Venenu does die, but he was so insurmountable in what Barracuda was doing. He set up Barracudas to survive and put out all that damage. Barra's confidence in coming back down into 4 from that ultimate showed how confident he was that Venenu was going to be there to support him. And Ven's ultimate was right across all 4 members. It was a well-orchestrated little play from Renegades. It cost Venenu his life, but it gives Renegades an even bigger lead right at the time of the Fury.
Yeah, opens up the door. I mean, if it was slammed open now, it's off its hinges if you're the Renegades. 8k gold, and it's going to get a little bit worse once the Oni Fury is in. And if you're Obey, that's got to be the worst Fury that you could possibly see getting taken down. I mean, map pressure is pushing against you anyway, but now with the Fire Giant potentially on the board, you get these Oni waves pushing back in against you. Back's against the wall here at this point, earlier than it was in game number 1. Big question becomes then, do Obey feel confident enough in moving out against a potential Fire Giant that gets started up? Neither team really have ward coverage on that side of the map just yet.
Yeah, looking at Obey's composition, not the greatest at secure around an FG either. Good sustained damage for an FG and a Jingwei and a Merlin, right? But, you know, trying to secure it, going to be a trickier task. Not necessarily saying Renegades have got a fantastic secure on their team, but it's definitely a little bit better than what we see on the side of Obey. But with the level lead Renegades have got and the item lead, that's going to come into play on the amount of damage output or even secure potential. I think the job now really from Obey is, what do we do? Do we try and force a fight and then go for a cheeky FG? Or do we let Renegades start up the FG and look to take a scrap around it? Remember, when you fight into an FG and the team's tanking it, you are doing reduced damage for the people that are involved in doing the FG, specifically the one tanking it, and you are taking unnecessary damage. So maybe that's the call. Renegades don't need to, though, look at an FG. They could just keep playing without going for it.
And this is a smart call from Barracuda. Remember, the ultimate obviously can be used defensively, but if he's going to force Inbound to stay there on defense, well, Barra can just ult into a fight if it's springing out as he needs. Inbound will have to go back to base, utilize the passive to get on back out. Instead, nothing really happens on the left side of the map here. It's going to be a Pyromancer for the Renegades, locked in, a couple wards maybe sprinkled on the other side of that Fire Giant pit. Barracuda's going to get chased down a little bit here, but he'll be just fine with getting himself out alive. You know, Ducky on top of the damage charts here in this game. Graham, 1, 4, and 5 on this Mulan. Mulan can have some decent setup, but I still think the fruits of what you were bringing up are coming to play here, where are these fights going to get turned? Ducky might have to say something about it. He's going to burn his ultimate here, and that's going to be over onto Lasbra, but a good sidestep there. Full 5-man collapse from Obey, from Colossal Fury, and Lasbra's on the retreat.
And you actually saw the anti-heal come out from Kissier as well, but not important enough to slow down Lasbra. Great pull from Rowe, and now the damage is on.
Venenu has to Thunder Crash defensively here. Big setup from Rowe there, but somehow no kills just yet. There's Barracuda. Gets himself the first. It's a double now for the Chernobog 20 minutes into the game. Might be looking at a deicide here, and we sure are. A double kill for Jake as well. Deicide 20 minutes in. And down the right lane go the Renegades.
Yeah, option is, do we take Towers, Phoenixes, or the Fire Giant? Well, why not both? We've got 20 plus seconds going on here. Doesn't surprise me to see them split the difference a little bit. Take a tier 2 for the gold, take the FG at the same time. Don't know about the Phoenix, it is a possibility, give or take, but only 10 seconds left. I think this will be a tier 2 Fire Giant into base and get ready to siege with the FG next. Good fight from Renegades, though. Obey, as we talked about, and you were just saying it again of like where the engagements come from. You saw Ducky use his ultimate, and that just seemed to be go for Obey, right? Try and take this fight.
Right.
They looked at Lasbra. Lasbra disengaged well. Anti-heal was popped from Kissier straight into an ultimate, and then all hell broke loose as Rowe hit a beautiful ultimate.
At this point, I don't think engage is in the vocabulary of Obey. I think you are either disengaging or hoping that you can catch a pick somewhere, because it hasn't worked out for you 21 minutes into this game. 15k gold on the deficit here. Granted, on that Phoenix line, you've got kind of this 6th man that's going to be pouring out some good damage as well. We have seen games delayed from that Phoenix line, but I'm not sure how confident Obey will be in the defensive composition they have.
And I think that's the right thing to say. Honestly, I think Phoenix's line, they do have a chance to defend. Yes. It's better when all 3 Phoenixes are up, granted, to try and defend. If you've got 1 Phoenix down, the Phoenix defense isn't really a thing anymore. It becomes a different battle because you've always got fire minions to deal with, a weakened Phoenix maybe if it does respawn. But when all 3 are up, you do have a shot. And I think their defensive line isn't terrible at this moment in time. It's about whether they can nullify Renegade's engage of this Fafnir, of this Vamana, and of this Cerberus diving on into the back. And if they can still get the defense on is the question. We'll just see if it's something that Obey can handle here.
Yeah, Rowe hits a 4-man ultimate to start off that fight over there on the solo lane. And everything just kind of tumbles from there on out. Minions not quite reaching over here in the mid lane just yet, so the Renegades are going to have to push themselves in on this left-hand side. Level 20 starting to be reached by a few members here. Rowe, Lasbra, Venenu, Barracuda, all there. Everyone else playing catch-up, so you've reached that point in the game where XP won't matter as much, except for Obey building themselves back in. We did see, maybe a slight stuff in Game 1 over here on the Phoenix lines, but I think Renegades are going to be confident in maybe diving themselves in.
If you kept an eye on the mini-map as well, you saw the pings go out from Renegades. They're going to flank around the back if possible at Renegades from the middle area. But Renegades have already initiated on this left-hand side, and poor old Wolf is in trouble.
See you later. Wolfie Venenu, though, follows immediately after, so both mid laners are gone. Renegades, though, still have the power on their side after that. Sino is looking for Barracuda, but in and out of the wall goes the Chernabog. Barracuda up to the skies now. 3 members of Obey left defending. Renegades on the doorstep of moving on to the tournament next week. And Graham, I think they found it. Ducky, he'll be the one to complete the deicide. Renegades move on, and we'll see you next weekend.
Yeah, United relegated down to join Obey, failing to get any points in Phase 1. It was a good performance from Renegades. I think the fans who've been around a long time will tell you, having a switch up like both teams had with the suspensions today, there was going to be more of an impact coming into the duo lane than the solo lane frustrations, mainly because a lot of people have seen Rowe before. He played at the World Championships recently for Pittsburgh Knights. You knew they were going to probably survive okay in the solo lane, but there was more of an issue in the duo lane, and Jake stepped up in both games there. Those purple invades at the start of the game really nullified anything duo lane could ever do for Obey.
Yeah, not only did Golden XP just kind of inflate there, it's purple buff steals into a Fury steal, into a Pyromancer steal. I mean, even the small things that Obey were trying to set up for themselves just didn't work out at the end of it all. It's the Renegades in 2 pretty quick games, 29 and then 23 minutes. They complete the 2-0. They move themselves on to the playoffs. We'll go back to Gormizer to break it down.
Well, hey, you said most of the important beats there. They're going to playoffs. They did the last one in 23, and, well, it just looks good pretty much from the get-go there for Renegades. And Mifflin, I think a lot of it does start over there in that duo lane. And, we and you were having conversations about it, potentially switching over, letting Bobby be that support again, just so he can maybe have more of an impact. Because, look at Jake. Jake was everywhere throughout that game. It was hard to keep up.
Yeah, I think it really is, and Hindu nailed it down. It's that Obey were playing to not lose rather than winning. Giving up your agency as support by switching Bobby over to Hunter means that best case scenario, Bobby doesn't lose lane. Best case scenario for Kazir is that he does as good as Bobby might have in support, and neither comes true. Bobby gets blown out in lane. Kazir doesn't have very much impact on the game. I think the winning play for Obey 100% is keep your strong player in their own roles. Let him make impact on the game elsewhere, even if you have to sacrifice the duo lane, which is not really a sacrifice. Renegades was taking it either way, whether or not Obey wanted to give it up. You could still at least look to fight elsewhere on the map, but Obey just weren't willing to do it today.
Yeah, Jake being able to do more damage on support than we got to see out of the duo lane, almost combined there from Obey. I think he was about 2,000 damage off. If he hit that 12k mark, it would have been enough to be more than K's here and inbound. So unfortunate for them that it didn't work the way that they wanted it to. And they still found some clap backs, but I don't know if there was really that many fights I left that game thinking, yeah, Obey did enough to keep this on par throughout all of that. There were a lot of times where Renegades just seemed to be running the show even when they weren't fully in control.
I mean, right there at the 12-minute mark, that gold three, that was really the only time that I thought, okay, Obey might be able to stay in this. And then Lazarus says, hey, what up, psych? Takes away the gold fury, takes away Obey's chances of winning. And Renegades, they do. They just win cleanly across the map everywhere. It didn't even matter. Even in solo, we saw that the sub for Renegades was outperforming Ducky just a little bit, likely due to the help from his squad. Sure enough, we could put credit where it's due, but even then, not a single lane was winning for Obey.
I mean, imagine a world where 2 different objectives were started, about a minute apart there in the highlight reel and in-game, and Lazarus said no both times. You're in a world where just, again, control seems to be just emanating off of the Renegades in terms of engagements, even when Obey were looking for a clapback. So maybe it was, the unfortunate circumstances, but both players were down, or both teams were down a player. I think it's just unfortunate for Obey that, Renegades had a sub that had been playing in the solo lane already. In fact, we actually have none other than Rowe, the man, the myth, the legend, standing by to see how they're feeling after that win, and now making it to playoffs.
Yeah, Rowe, the coach of the Renegades and solo laner for the day here. And 2-0 for you guys, Rowe. First of all, congratulations, big win, and move on to the playoffs. Initial reactions to getting back in there, scrapping around in the solo lane.
I hated my performance. I thought it was terrible. I think thinking back, there was some good moments, but overall, like I'm not in a performance or a position to be playing again. I haven't practiced at all. But they had the same issue. At least I'm in a role that I'm comfortable with. Kasia is in a role that he's comfortable with, but that had to put inbound in an ADC role, which he's not comfortable in. I don't think. It's not the way we wanted to qualify at all. We really, really wanted to qualify, and this takes some I don't know, some goodness out of that. But a win's a win. We're in playoffs. Teams that weren't first seed typically have won the last 2 tournaments in MSI last year and Worlds last year as well with SK. So we can't count ourselves out. Even though we're not happy that I'm having to play, I'm not happy mostly. It's just a fact that we're in this situation. I believe we play Ghost. I'm not 100% sure, and they have a sub as well. There's rumors that they may be switching subs, so I don't know what's happening with that. We just have to wait and see. Just glad we got the win to start with.
Yeah, still maybe some shifting on the upper end. We'll really have all that solidified after today. Hey, I saw the 4-man Cerberus ult. You got the big setup there in one of those games.
It's a big circle.
It's a big circle, but you put the circle in the right place. But kind of behind the scenes, obviously as a coach, and then of course here as a player, were you happy with how the team kind of prepped? This is really the first big do or die game you guys faced. In a way, the playoffs started for you guys here today. Were you happy with the way things were behind the scenes?
Honestly, there was no preparing for this situation. We can prepare for any team in the league, but there was no preparing for me stepping in and playing. I had at least 1 day of practice, and I don't think they had any, so that's something. But yeah, I think given 1 day of practice, I'm happy with how we prepared. I could only assume that they're going to try to play through solo because Ducky is a stronger solo laner than I am. So I just played completely on the back foot, just did nothing, didn't even try to contest totems when he was contesting them, didn't fight him at all in that first game because he was building something to just kill me anytime. And Cerberus, I don't think I can die on either, so I just played as safe as possible, and my team won the game. My team handed me every one of my blue buffs, so it was easy for me. My team won the game for me.
Right. Hey, even given short notice, you guys put together a game plan, and it seemed to work. A little bit more time to prep now, moving into the playoffs next weekend. Ro, big congrats. We'll see you guys back in action next weekend in the Phase 1 playoffs. Everyone at home, though, stick around. Sanguine versus Radiance up next.
Thank you.